comes. It's completely the opposite of material loving affairs. Therefore, we recommend everyone should cultivate these moods, beginning with servitude, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. And each one is better than the last. Conjugal love actually contains all the qualities of all the other rasas. Conjugal love is like the spring from which the river arises. So one should try to understand this conjugal love of Krishna. And if you're so fortunate that this is your actual identity or relationship with Krishna, then you should understand how to cultivate it and how to mature it so that it becomes very, very pleasing to Krishna. And that's the perfection of devotional service. Another question? Huh? Oh, good.
Okay. Question from Devesh. How does one realize his or her role, since sometimes he feels like it is that of a friend and sometimes that of a parent, or maybe at times conjugal? It keeps changing from time to time, I have found.
Well, then you haven't recognized your actual role. You're still in the beginning stage where you're just sampling all these tastes. It's just like if you go to a banquet where there are all these varieties of food that you've never had before. You want to sample a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then sooner or later, you'll find one that you really like, and then you fill your plate up with that one. So it's like that when we first become engaged in transcendental service, we want to try different tastes, and see how does this one feel? How does that one feel? How does this? And then sooner or later, we develop a preference. This process cannot be rushed artificially. It has to happen over a long period of time by cultivation. And then, like I was saying last night, sooner or later get to the point where you can't help yourself. You become compelled to taste a particular rasa or particular type of relationship with Krishna internally. And then you'll know. You'll know. When it's time, you won't have any more doubts. You'll know.
Question from Rochana Dev. I always had this question about following in the footsteps of the gopis or Nanda Maharaj. One aspires and thinks of a specific relationship with Krishna. Is there a method of worship for each rasa, or does one just think of this relationship?
Well, there's external and internal. For example, externally, if one is playing the role of the father of the Lord, well, what does Nanda Maharaj do exactly? If you read in the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Nanda Maharaj is always arranging festivals for Krishna's pleasure. Just like Srila Prabhupada. Everywhere he went, there was a festival. So Srila Prabhupada's pastime was his external pastimes were very much in the mood of parenthood. Yet internally, he sometimes thought of himself as a friend and sometimes as conjugal lover. You see? Because there's elements of friendship in conjugal love, and there's elements of conjugal love in friendship. Subal, for example, who was mentioned in Nectar of Devotion, Subal is always acting as go-between between Krishna and Radharani. He's helping Krishna to arrange his meetings with Radharani, which this service is so confidential that even Balaram doesn't know about these things. Balaram has no idea what's going on between Radha and Krishna. Those pastimes are so confidential. Even Balaram isn't part of that. Huh? He has his own gopis and his own loving affairs going on. But Subal actually is totally involved with the relationship between Radha and Krishna. So is his relationship is not exactly 100% friendship. There's also some taste of conjugal love involved. Would have to be. Otherwise, how could he be so engaged in that particular service, you see? So even the friends of Krishna can do some service to the gopis and assist their conjugal affairs with Krishna. And similarly, the parents of Krishna, their mood, see, now friendship and conjugal love are harmonious, okay? But parenthood and conjugal love are completely dissonant. They don't go together at all. So Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they don't know anything about Krishna's affairs with the gopis. To them, Krishna is always their little boy, especially Mother Yashoda. Krishna is her little baby boy who's so delicate that, he has to sleep late in the morning because he works so hard tending those calves, And when he's looking after the calves, sometimes they get lost in the forest, and he has to go through the bushes and search them out. So he has these scratches all over him, you see, from the thorns of the bushes. The idea that they are from the fingernails of the gopis is completely like, Mother Yashoda would faint. She couldn't handle it. So the devotees take enormous pains to conceal the conjugal pastimes of the Lord from Mother Yashoda especially, and Nanda Maharaj. Because those two moods are not at all harmonious. But the friends are harmonious, and so are, to a certain extent, the servants. So, but just bear just a little bit. Mostly the servants are more like the parents, and they know very little about the Lord's confidential conjugal activities. How do we get on that subject? Oh, yeah. So externally, one can act, however one acts in relation to the devotional service of the Lord is like his external mood. And one can have an external relationship with the deity by serving the deity in a certain way. And that can even be different from his internal relationship, which is experienced in the spiritual body alone. These things are so complicated. It's not, you cannot simplify it any more than it actually is. Otherwise, it would be offensive, actually, to try to simplify this science of devotional service. Human beings, spirit souls, jivas, are very complex beings. Huh? We're like Krishna. We can wear different hats, We can put on different moods. We can be different. We can act different roles. We can do different forms of service. Huh? If you read Vidagdha-Madhava by Rupa Goswami, you will find that there are devotees, for example, who go back and forth between the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan and the pastimes of Nitai Gauranga in Navadvip, in the spiritual world. They pass back and forth, and they have different forms in these different pastimes. And it just gets wilder from there on out. Everything is possible. Krishna can enhance the natural capabilities of the jiva with all kinds of his internal potencies, if he wants, Or we can just remain very simple, and focused on one mood. But in the beginning of spiritual life, and when I say the beginning of spiritual life, I mean the beginning of actual self-realization, one realizes one specific mood. Okay? And that mood is known as one's swarupa, or a permanent mood, sthāyi bhava. Sthāyi bhava means the the permanent or eternal serving mood that one has in relation to Krishna. Then there may be other temporary or auxiliary moods that are developed off of that, like branches off of that. But the sthāyi bhava is the root. One should focus on that first. More questions?
Question from Mother Swati. Is the mood of neutrality not recommended? I once felt immense pleasure thinking myself to be grass in Vrindavan.
Well then, even the grass in Vrindavan is the servant of the gopis. If you're in Vrindavan, I mean,